So let's get started with the formal part of the presentation. It seems like all of you are coming with slightly different backgrounds and slightly different needs for your Fab Lab, which makes some collaboration always the best, because we all have different ideas and how we can implement and come up with ways to connect our learners to digital fabrication and to the power of their message that they bring with us or with them. The presentation today I'll be sharing in just a moment, but we're expecting this whole workshop to be about 45 minutes to an hour, so it will be a little bit shorter than some of the others, so don't be surprised when it's about that time frame. And so our goal is to help our students in the best way possible make it through not only some of the successes in their life, but some of the hard times, and being able to use making as a way to express themselves as an individual through their cultures, to get their emotions out onto something, or just feel pride and ownership in something in a way that isn't completely academic, has been found to immensely improve their connection with the manufacturing machines, making digital design in a way that improves the mindset for all of the learners. Let me share my screen. So, oops, there we go. This is not exactly the format that I want you to see. Just a second. My present button is underneath my Zoom window. There it is. Okay, there we go. That's better. So as we look through here, we're thinking about the stories that are told through making. And I will share this presentation with all of you in the chat in just a little bit. And I'll also have it available through the Fab Foundation's resources later on. So we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. All right, so we already mastered this first part, love that. How do stories share culture? So when we think of culture, we all have a different idea of culture, but we learn a lot about our own culture through talking and sharing and bringing little bits of what makes us us into the maker projects. And so the lessons that we've learned about tenacity, about perseverance, about being a learner and being flexible have just been amplified throughout this past year as we've maneuvered through all of the situations due to quarantining and COVID-19 and isolation and fears. And our Fab Labs can help us get over some of those challenges by bringing us back together again to make positive artifacts and coping artifacts. I'm going to hand it off to Dave.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you hear Rion in the background hyperventilating, it's okay. They will make it. They're a little nervous about their speaking portion of this, and you know, I've told them that you guys will all be excited to hear from them. So one of my favorite quotes is, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." That is attributed to Teddy Roosevelt. We're going to be at a really pinnacle moment in time for a lot of our students as we re-enter school this year. You know, for students in Schenectady, we have been out of school for 18 months now. We were fully virtual last year with a couple of smaller pod components, which we'll get to. But a lot of our kids, you know, have not had access to schools. They haven't had access to classrooms. They haven't had access to the teachers they're used to seeing. And so I just wanted to cover a little bit about social emotional learning. So what is SEL? Everyone's always talking about social emotional learning. It's a huge push in our school. I'm the committee chairperson for a social emotional learning subcommittee reopening. We've put a lot of emphasis on social emotional learning for students as we come back into school. And SEL is really how children and adults learn to understand and manage emotions, set goals, show empathy for others, establish positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. But simply put, SEL is an intentional way to support the growth of students' inter and intrapersonal skills. Now, that is something that has adjusted through COVID-19. Our students are not connecting face-to-face as often. I know that students are using a lot of different digital methods to do so, including Discord, which I know is huge for students, correct?
Yeah.
And one of the other ways that we were able to have students make connections was through Makerspaces, through the projects that they were working on together collaboratively. And so here at our school, we brought kids back in a pod format, which isn't the best educational platform for students, because reality was they were coming in to a school, sitting in a room with a paraprofessional and going through their virtual learning day. I don't know if anyone had to or was forced to sit at a computer for 8 hours a day all of last year, with 5-minute breaks in between. But I can tell you it's pretty brutal. Teenagers' bodies are not supposed to do that. I don't think any adults should actually have to do that either, but our kids were forced to do that. And we were lucky enough to have a Makerspace teacher, Jack Cohn, Professor Cohn, who was able to come in pretty consistently into our building, teach their classes virtually from the Makerspace room, but also have our pod kids down there learning and engaging in instruction, and also just making and just collaborating, and having that social emotional connection to each other. So I think one way that we can all help is by really being intentional about fostering that collaboration, the ability for students to problem solve, for us as adults to really set goals for students, but also be open to the idea that some students may be going through some other traumatic experiences that they've had to deal with during this time in COVID. So as kids come back into our schools, I know, Dan, you said you were preparing up there with your educators. It's going to be a really important time for us to work with our students to engage in social emotional learning. And one of the ways that we're looking at doing that is by working to increase student voice in our schools. Katie, if you want to go to the next slide. This is kind of a continuum that we talk about a lot in our building, around student voice. And, I think in Schenectady, we've done a good job at getting to the participation point. We have a lot of opportunities for students to show expression, consultation, sharing feedback and opinions in focus groups. Everyone sends out surveys and you only get responses from the people who are either really mad at you or really happy with you, and not in between. And then participation in meetings with decision makers. So one thing that we've been able to do is we have a teen advocacy group. They are a group of students who sit with administration and try to help guide our positions. But what we're really looking at is the impact that our Makerspace has had on this continuum. Before we went out in March of 2020, our Makerspace was really making a pretty dramatic turn, and our students were seeing the impact they could make with the vinyl cutter, and our kids really were enjoying the ability to make T-shirts that express themselves or support for organizations. And I remember we had a huge there were a number of weeks before we went out where our Makerspace was putting out hundreds of Black Lives Matter shirts every day. We ran through the T-shirts, we ran through the vinyl. Kids who had never entered the Makerspace before were pounding on the door. They wanted to be a part of it. And that, I think, was getting to a point where we were with that partnership and activism component. But we want our students to really drive the programs that we're doing and the projects that we're doing. And that is something that, Jack was able to do this spring when they had students in there that weren't necessarily tied to their classroom, but wanted to make things. And the things that our students were making, and Rian will talk about that in just a little bit, were projects that were super impactful. And so as we go along this continuum, you know, we're going to work to build leadership opportunities for students to sit on our anti-racism building leadership team. We have students that sit on our safety subcommittees and that sort. But what I'm really looking at are the students who are engaging in Makerspace to get them into the leadership opportunities, because it really does bring about such a wide range of skills for our students. We're a high needs urban district. We have a very, very high poverty rate. You know, our students do enjoy the machines that we have from the Fab Lab, but they're also looking at expanding our Makerspace to include video and music production. Before we went out, we were starting to put a stage in our library. It was our librarian was very supportive of other forms of media. And Katie, if you can go to the next slide. You know, our students are really big into creating music and video content. And when we talk about stories told through making, I had to include this picture. I graduated the class of 2020 and then started with the freshman class in September of 2020. In October of 2020, one of my former students, Naylon Carrington, was killed in a tragic car accident really close to our school. He was the glue that kept our kids together. He was the kid in the cafeteria that would tell people to, you know, take it easy if they got too upset, or, you know, have a good laugh with them. And when he passed, it left a huge gap in our school community. Even though he had already graduated, he was a local kid who was really important to a lot of different students that were coming through with in terms of football and basketball, and just being a great all-around student. So one of his best friends, another student in my cohort, wanted to make a music video to represent his feelings around Naylon. And this is just a, you know, a shot from inside of the gym. Tanky is spitting his bars. We have another student doing the video production. And then you can see in the bottom right corner, that's Naylon's mom. And so this was something that I know isn't necessarily aligned directly with digital fabrication making, but is another story told through making. And it's a great song, really supportive. And you know, I'm sorry, I'm at a little bit of a loss. They've both been really important to me. So I'm going to turn it over to Katie to talk some more around the Schenectady STEAM projects that she's been a part of this year as well.
Thanks, Dave. And connecting those stories is what makes each one of these projects a little bit different. And I know that I'll be sharing some examples that you may or may not find useful, but the idea of some of these examples is that you can take them and modify them for your own needs or for your own students. Your students' stories will come through and they'll be their problems to focus on, not necessarily my problems that I'm telling them to focus on. So this is just some ideas, some starts. They're not anything too dramatic, but my hope is that you can build on them. And the resources that I'll be sharing with you in just a moment are linked through this presentation, and you'll be able to access that presentation. So you'll have access to viewing hopefully viewing the brainstorm sheets as well. So some of the projects that I have listed here focus on 3D printing and using the vinyl cutter They seem to be fairly accessible machines to lots of teachers and lots of students. But they can also be created without the use of the manufacturing machines, in a situation where if you're having a making event where the kids are virtual and they need to be coming in from home, or some other types of events. But the first one that I've posted here is important issues, designing stickers or bookmarks to spread positivity, awareness, and culture. So when we think about, these could be just about anything. Bookmarks can be, I don't know if this is backwards or not. Bookmarks can be printed on vinyl and then adhered to just paperboard and used to highlight the information that the students feels is important. They can also be 3D printed and made. This is really hard to see, I can tell, but the words and images can be 3D printed on a slim thing that can be used as a bookmark, or even like a key fob. Let's see if it brings us there. Oh, yay, this works. Let me know if you can see this. Can you see the screen, the brainstorm sheet? Terrific. So this is kind of the teacher sheet that I use to help my students brainstorm some slogans that they could potentially use. And so the focus doesn't just become, okay, so I can do my name, but what are some things about me that I can put as my motivational slogan? What are some things about me that I want to be able to remember? Am I a talented artist? And then I can remember that when I'm not feeling so talented. Or what are the things that I really care about? And how do I want to get that message out? Do I want to share about getting out the vote? Do I want to share about equity for all, equal pay for equal work, medicine, access to health care? Whatever my issue is, I can make something to help promote that issue and help spread the awareness. One thing that I focus on throughout these projects is the power of positive thought. So as the students are brainstorming their ideas, coming up with mottos and issues, what can we do that's good for ourselves? What can we do that's good for our school? What can we do that's good for our communities, in our world? And keeping that hopefulness is what's going to help keep some of these projects even more meaningful. So making sure to emphasize, these are for positivity and motivation, and not to backlash against any one person or issue or stance. We bounce back to here. And then I also have a couple examples of ones that, and I'm just assuming that people can see. Dave, can you let me know that, can you see the design? Okay, great, thank you. So this is an example of a bumper sticker or wall sticker that could be cut and layered for a project. And then they can use the heritage that's involved, the Native American symbolism, and then the phrases to help talk about why they feel that that issue is important, why they chose that symbol, and where they could display this to help send that positive message. And then there's another example page, and these are some 3D printed ideas for issues that they're passionate about, and qualities about themselves that they would they feel that they would like to be able to share with others. Oops, cheapers. So the second project that you'll be taking a quick look at is, I call it treasure chests and trash bins. Students are creating a container that, or containers for emotional management. So I have linked here that are 2 of them that are for unplugged. So the kids are upcycling tag board and cardboard and the other household materials to make them. And then there's also a template for if you just want to find the boxes and have the kids cut them out using a laser cutter or some other sort of paper cutter. And those, the idea is when we look at our treasure chest, that they're building a container that they can open and close. They can put their happy thoughts, good deeds, and kind actions into. So they can access them and have a spot to hold and cherish them. And so here's a list of ideas and then some question prompts. What do you need? What do you need? How are you going to do this? What are you going to put inside of it and why? And then after the students design it, they also have a share out with it. And then there's also the loading the trash bin. And the trash bin one I think is kind of fun because they're making something that they can't open. They're going to take all their bad feelings and they can write them on little slips of paper or just their fears and frustration, put us in the slot in the trash bin. And then when they're all done, they can smash that thing up and get rid of it. So help them create a physical vessel to put some of their anxieties and fears into. And then the design steps on this prompt are for if you're upcycling random things around the house. But again, what are you going to put in it and why? And if you wanted to make a laser cut container, those templates are available, and you can also bring in the whole geometry part of it and how we're going to put shapes together to make a bin, to make a cylinder, to make a box. So that's the next layer up. I'm just focusing on the social emotional rather than the math concept at the moment. And then, oops, geez, I keep wanting to click to the next screen. The personal fidget rings are just worry tools, fidget tools, things to help us stay settled back in the classroom, to manipulate in our hands. And we kids often have fidget spinners and putty, but they are things that they buy at the store. So these beaded ring fidgets are ones that they create to represent themselves. And there's a variety of different things that you could have students put on them. But imagine 3D printing a bead that'll fit on a ring that will represent you as yourself, what you feel your class is, your school, your community. It can be textured, patterned, numbered. You can have words, your positive attributes. What are 4 things that you are happy about for yourself? Is it because you're a strong swimmer, you can play the clarinet, and you really like history? If those are some positive attributes about yourself, put that in a way that you can touch it and feel it. So you would be making these rings with the beads, and each bead represents part of you, and then you can sit in class and play with the beads. I have some examples of some of the 3D printed beads, 3D printed design beads that I would do for myself. I have a group of 3 because I have in my family, there's 3 of us. And this, oh, my tree is upside down, but this is a tree because I really like nature. I have an apple because I'm a teacher, kind of cliche. And then a hand because I like making things and doing things. So these are 4 things about me that I find as positive attributes that I could put on my keychain, my key ring, and then fidget with. And I know that's really quick, but you'll get the copy of this. And then there's a simple brainstorm design sheet. And with these design sheets, sometimes all the emotion comes out in this. What am I going to put on my bead? If I was going to represent my family, my culture, my community, how could I put those symbols on a bead? So beads have been used throughout history in ways to tell stories, to share emotions, as currency. and just for decoration as well. So the power of a bead has deep-rooted cultural relevance, and just bring it from that pattern, they might have some cultural patterns that they wanted to use. So again, this leaves it very open for teachers to adapt. And I'll be putting the link for these all in the chat and just in the chat in just in a moment. But I would love for all of you to have an opportunity to share any social emotional projects or storytelling projects that you have used in your Fab Lab with your learners. Let me stop sharing here. Is there anyone who has something to share that they would like to share?
I'll share something really quick, only because it happens to be sitting on my desk next to me right now. But our curriculum is really centered on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them. You may or may not be familiar. And they have these really cool logos that there's one for each goal. And so just last week, I worked with a bunch of teachers who are doing our curriculum in their classrooms. And we just cut vinyl out of all the logos out of vinyl. And then each teacher picked the 3 goals that are personal to them for whatever reason. And we all made t-shirts. And then on the second day of the workshop, we wore our t-shirts and everybody talked about why they picked those particular goals. And they weren't necessarily meant to pick the ones that aligned with what their projects were for their classes, but what were of interest to them personally. And so it was super cool to hear. Almost everybody had quality education goal number 4. That was obvious, but the rest of them were really, really cool. So that was a fun activity. And we did like 12 shirts in half an hour. And so it was really feasible to do with a whole class of students.
Terrific, thanks, Robin. Is there anyone else who'd like to share an activity?
Sarah's got her hand raised.
Sarah.
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm late. I had baby watching woes, but I am here and I am very excited. I'm like trying to desperately go through your presentation. I feel so bad for missing part of it, but yeah, I have my favorite project for some social emotional learning stuff. I'm gonna share. Is that okay, Katie? Yep, good. I'm really bad at Zoom. Okay, I hope you can see this. So I do this project that starts with this core value worksheet with so many of my kids. I run a mobile Fab Lab in Cleveland, for those of you who don't know me, working with mostly kids K through 8. But in this core values worksheet, they go through and they like pick out which of these values are the most important to them. They start with 10 and then they narrow it down to 5 and then they go down to 3. So their 3 core values might be kindness, honesty, and family. And then from there, I have like probably 6 or 7 different projects that stem from this. So it's really nice for teachers to be able to do one activity and then kind of like bounce off of it. We've done laser engraving on bracelets that we just put those values right on there. We've also done it with necklaces so the kids can kind of wear it around their necks. We've done my favorite activity with it, Adinkra Symbols, which are these like cool West African pictorial language that was featured in Black Panther. That of course is just like a big winner for anything with the kids that you can get like Marvel in there, right? Where is it? So it's this like West African language where so the kids go in and they look and they find their existing Adinkra symbol that matches those 3 core values. And then they have to combine those 3, like the Adinkra symbol for honesty, family, and love, or whatever there are, to create one that just represents them. And then we can put it on a journal, or we can 3D print it, or we can vinyl cut it and put it on a t-shirt. But this one has a ton of different applications. And then the last one is I have this like what's inside my head that we start with that same activity. And then we do a silhouette with just a simple vinyl cutter. And then kids can fill in what's inside of their head in the negative space one. And then they have like a really cute, pretty positive space silhouette that they can take home. And all of that kind of starts from just those, what are my core values worksheet.
Those are fabulous, Sarah. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to jump in there?
Sure, I'll go. I'm Brian at the CITC's Fab Lab. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a music camp with one of our instructors, and we had all the students process some of their own rawhide string and drums, and we're teaching them about the cultural significance. That might be Dan's computer over there, but teaching them the cultural significance of drums, but also teaching them I mean, of course, tempo and stuff like that, but also consent that comes with drums, and secure the cultural significance, spirituality that comes with them, and how they can reflect and kind of treat the drum as if it's a person, how they traditionally work in Alaska, and learn how they can give their consent with having friends play their drums or not having them do that, and setting boundaries for themselves, basically through cultural practices like drums and drum making. So that's kind of one of the things that we're starting to do, is resetting ourselves on indigenous practices and culture like that through cultural knowledge.
Thanks, Brian. That's awesome. Do we have any other people that would like to share a project?
Well, I find it really difficult to present you my project in English, but I will let you the link for the video I sent for the Fab Lab World about an activity we made. We made a haiku for adults and vinyl cut, and then we create books from every time we had books from around the world and the books from Canada. Picture books to be exposed to representations from another countries, and representations made there, not here, because we want to know like cultural products from another countries and not only exposed to production from here. So I will you, this is the, no, this is not the link. The video is in French, but this, the second part, it's most is I don't know how to say. It's really visual, so maybe you will understand something. I will just let you. Okay, you have it there if you can see it after that. Thanks everyone for the experience.
Terrific, thank you. And then Dan, you had your hand up?
Yes, and then realized Catalina, was ready to go. So one of our, intro activities for both students and instructors is to create a nameplate representing either your culture or your personality. So I was busy around scrounging instructors and teachers nameplates that were left over. So sharing a few of you, like one of our instructors chose to represent personality with a sea lion. I guess one of your favorite animals that you can sightsee here in Alaska. Another one of our staff members represent heritage with drying salmon, which is very, very important for both our culture, our nutritional, our community with sharing subsistence. And those so far have been the block square, but one of our other teacher in school educators shows models for his students that you can get more representative with his favorite animal. See if I can fill, and his nickname, the Slothanaut. So yeah, thanks for keeping that around, Kale. I showed him your Slothanaut. And yeah, as might as well just personality wise representing some symbolism that's important to me. So use that to inspire for students drawing that up in Corel or any other SVG programming, and then get an experience laser cutting and resining.
Fantastic. Anyone else? All right, so I think we've all, I know that people have others that they might not want to share at this point, but that's fine too. And we do have our student who we are going to hear a little bit about some of the importance of making and having the makerspace, once they're ready, share their experience with us. And I'll have them start by introducing themselves and being ready to go. You ready over there in Schenectady?
We're good. There's a little nerves. We're good though. We're good. We're gonna get through it.
I'm not that dark. Why can't you see me? Okay. All right. So, in regards to like makerspace in the school with Professor Cohn, so in regards to like being in makerspace with like Professor Cohn in this school, there was always like a sense of like safety in there, and I felt that I could like really like just be into something that I really enjoyed in expressing how I felt when I was like, you know, in a safer space because of things like my, you know, identity with, you know, being trans and being a part of that community. And I can say that for a lot of my other friends who did the same too. And that since, you know, Professor Cohn is also non-binary, I felt that it was like a great way for me to like feel better as myself in this school. It was just a great.
You're doing a great job.
Okay. Where was I?
You can talk about that final project you did for English class that you did while you were in the Makerspace, if you want.
Oh yeah. I had this English project where we would have to take something that we were passionate about and try to make like a persuasive piece of writing about it. And I obviously chose LGBTQ problems such as like, you know, like trans rights and their rights to have like gender neutral bathrooms and other things like that, and feeling safe in like school environments. And working on that while in Makerspace, like it was super beneficial to like the whole like feeling of the paper. And it was, well, it wasn't a paper, it was a poster. But I just thought that Makerspace, I probably wouldn't have done as well in like probably half of my classes if it wasn't for like the community that was around in the Makerspace. Yeah.
I can agree with that because when they came to the building in the pods, failing everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything.
Oh.
About 2 months into the pods before Professor Cohn came in, still failing everything. And then once Rion had access to the Makerspace, started passing almost everything. Was absolutely bombing English class, like bombing. Even though it was her favorite teacher, didn't matter, still bombing the class. But with that project and the artwork that was put into it and the information that was shared, you know, that ELA teacher came in the day after the project was presented and was like, I'm blown away. You know, they're easily going to pass this class. I know they have the skills to, you know, move forward into English 10. So, you know, it's also about educators being flexible and the products they accept as mastery, and how students are showing mastery. And the access to the Fab Lab has allowed our students different avenues to present on that. So I'm gonna mute it. Rian, you did a great job. Thank you.
Get me out of this chair.
Thank you, Rian. That was great. And I know it took a lot of courage. So if I could, assign you 100 for this one, you did it. Nice work. Nice work. We have just a little bit left, a little bit time left. And I know that there's all kinds of ideas that people are probably coming up with. And one of the things that I would like is to hear from folks is if there's any new ideas that you just came up with, or if there's other ideas that you would like to try in the in your makerspace, in your Fab Labs. Where do we go from here? What's the next? What are your takeaways from this discussion? How can we support each other? Would a forum to have more of these ideas out there? Or is it just how do we connect with our own students and our own makers to help them work on the issues that mean the most for them? So even if you don't want to say it out loud, what are some takeaways? Put it into chat. What are some of the takeaways that from this activity? What are 2 things that you're going to walk away with from here, thinking about making or doing or using or needing from your makerspace?
Katie?
Dan put utilizing Fab Labs and Makerspace as other avenues for outlets for our students' SEL expressions. Great.
Katie?
Teresa says how to incorporate SEL into activities. Corinne, integrate the student issues as storytelling to support creative activities. Creating fixed. Providing students with the opportunity to create physical objects linked to mindfulness curriculum. Mindfulness is a great thing to bring into this conversation. Thanks. Thanks, Robin. I would love to have you share, Nicole.
Katie, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I would like to share an experience from the last laboratory I'm working in. I had a delay now on speaking because I was translating keywords so you can understand me. Can I share screen? Can you see my screen now? Yes, okay. This was the last session of our laboratory or for 8 sessions last month, where this was in a zone with a traditional meeting identity in Chile. So from the repetition concept, we encourage them to design geometric patterns. With the pandemic, they couldn't be in the makerspace, so they worked from home. And the last session, they could at least go to this space, and they principally work by hand because the machines they can't they not, there was no time for them to take this project into the machine. So here there are some images of their work, and all them started from the concept of the meeting in crochet. They started a meeting, so then they identified and designed some patterns, and scale them and draw cards. This type of thing. So this was I wanted to share. From there's oh sorry, I can't express what I want to express, but I wanted to share this image and the experience.
Thank you for sharing, Nicole. The patterns were great to see. So it seems like there's a lot of takeaways that we can all build from based on what each other are doing in our Fab Labs. And I know that throughout this whole year, students and makers have been bringing their own emotions into the Fab Lab to directly come up with ways to solve problems in their life. And so just keeping that that idea of how we can keep this message positive, how we can help keep our learners building on the skills that they find as successful, that their heritage is meaningful, that their culture, their ethnicity is part of who they are as a human being and is worth celebrating. That's a lot of what these stories can be told through the artifacts that they're making. And Dave, did you have anything else?
No, I'm good. I think this has been really informative. It's been really great seeing a lot of other people's projects. And it's a lot more quiet over here now that Rian got a ride and went home. They did a great job though. And honestly, it was fun seeing them come out of their shell in this presentation.
And that's the power of making. All right, so unless anyone else has questions or comments, have a great rest of your day. Yes. Ryan, I would love to get your contact information. You're welcome, Sarah. It's good to see your face. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad that you all came and shared your own passions as well. Yeah, I'm going to put my email address in the CHMECT. Brian, how do you say that out loud?
Sorry, it's Payana. It's kind of a, oh, sorry, the universal word for thank you. It's of Inuit origin, but it's just saying Payana, thank you, or Payana, thank you very much.
Terrific. Thanks. Robin, can you put yours in as well?
Yes.
Thank you. And Nicole, I would love to get your email address as well. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing such great ideas. I love it. Already sent emails while we were talking.
Yes. Success.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Nicole. Terrific. All right. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, everyone.